Hey everyone, welcome to another responsive design video. In this video, we're going to talk about responsive images, and I'm also going to recap a little bit in the CSS because I did change some things in between the previous video and this video in order to make things flow a little bit more nicely. Let's start off with the CSS. Up at the top, we have seen the root element with all of our font sizes set through custom properties. We set up all of our type. We're not looking at any of that stuff. All that stuff is just the same as we've always had it. We're going to go down to the grid container, and this is all basically the same. It's still display grid. We're using grid template areas. We're repeating 5 columns at 1 FR each. We've got our grid gaps in there, and we've set a width on that container to clamp it down. This is one of the things that has not changed, but it's important to look at. The ideal size for this is 100% the view width minus 6 rem. The 6 rem accounts for the 3 rem of padding on each side. Now, this is not new, but it's something that we're going to call back to in other areas of our design. Going to keep scrolling down, and really where a lot of the changes were going to be in the feature and the feature text. What I did is I set a clamp on the feature text width so that at the widest sizes will desire to be the full width minus the 6 rem, so that it's going to take up all available space within the grid container. And it's going to have a minimum size of 35 characters and a maximum size of 75 characters. The feature is going to be set to 100% width, which means it'll take up all available space within the within its container by default. That's what it desires to do. It's going to have a maximum of 35 characters, or a minimum of 35 characters, and a maximum of 75 characters plus 250 pixels. This will make enough room for the feature text at maximum and enough room for the picture to be in there as well. Okay, these are going to be the default sizes for it for the whole time, no matter how big it scales up. Nothing changed in main content, side content, footer, any of that. Let's take a look at our first breakpoint at 48 rem. Okay, I added a clamp at 48 rem to make it be desired to be 100% width, as big as it can get, and then a minimum of 35 characters and a maximum of 75 characters. This will make sure that it doesn't take up too much space and force the image to be smaller. It'll make sure that it sits nicely next to the image as it gets to larger sizes. Okay, those were really the only changes. This was added in, and this stuff was changed a little bit. All right, so make sure you get those updates in there. If you need to go back and look through all the CSS that I just showed you and make sure yours is up to date, do so. All right, welcome back. Let's take a look at the HTML that we're going to be working with here. Now, this video doesn't deal with any more CSS. Responsive images, for the most part, deal strictly with HTML and how we create the images using HTML. I did add a image max width of 100% here so that the images never break out of their containers. This is kind of a standard thing we usually do with responsive images. We've been doing this since the beginning of your time learning about images with me. Let's go over to the index, our HTML. So I've got 3 images in the file. If I run this, you're going to see I've got my logo image, I've got this image right here in the feature, and this image right here in the sidebar. Okay. I'm going to also open this in Firefox because I'm going to be testing this mostly in Firefox. You may recall the feature in Chrome that makes it so it'll always load the largest available image when you're doing source set and sizes. And it makes it hard to, debug and view to see if it's actually working. So I like to to debug this using Firefox so that you can see the images actually changing. Let's look at the code. So go to the feature, so section class feature, to your figure and find the image. And I want you to add this HTML. It looks like a lot. Now, I have a series of photos in my folder called Reflect 250px all the way up through full size. You can see them all right here. I have all of these images because I want to have versions that will work on smaller size screens and larger size screens, and it'll always serve the most appropriate image for the size of the screen. For example, I don't want to serve a 4,000 pixel wide image on a screen that's a maximum size of 500 pixels. It just doesn't make sense. It's using resources unnecessarily, and it'll slow down the load speeds of the page. If I have a 500 pixel wide screen, I want to serve that 500 pixel wide image because it will load a lot more quickly than the 4,000 pixel one. Remember, the bigger the image, the longer it takes to download. So let's look at how this works again. So the image tag is usually just image source, and then you provide a URL to your image. You provide an alt text. For responsive images, we can also add source set and sizes. If you don't recall this, I strongly suggest you go back to the video on responsive images and watch it, because I'm not going to explain everything in here on how it works. But I make a comma-separated list after source set within these quotes that will be all of the images that it could pull from. So these URLs here match the files that are in my directory next to my HTML. Okay? So I list all of them. Next, under sizes, what we have is we have a series of arguments for breakpoints on the screen size, and also sizes for which the image is going to load. So with sizes, you provide a series of breakpoints. In this case, I only made one breakpoint at 48 rem. And at 48 rem, what it's going to do is it's going to give the screen size the 100% view width, and it's going to subtract 12 rem from it. Okay? So what this is going to do is, if the screen size is smaller than 48 rem, it's going to make the image, it's going to set the size of box where the image can reside at 100% the width of the screen minus 12 rem. Okay, so it's going to be pretty big. This is saying that on the smallest screens, I want that image to take up almost the entire width of the frame. And then at all other times, I want the image to be 500 pixels, okay? So any size larger than 48 rem, the image is always going to take up a 500 pixel box. And let's see why I did that. I'm gonna go over here, and you can see that it's serving my 500 pixel image here at the widest width. I chose the 500 pixel one because, remember, when I'm at the sizes that are larger than 48 rem, I've got my image sitting to the left of my text. So if that box got too big, there wouldn't be room for them to sit side by side. And I've got them sitting side by side at all sizes larger than 48 rem. I'm going to debug this, go to inspect, and I'm just going to hover over that image and see what it says. Okay, it says that the image box is 350 pixels wide, and it's serving my 500 pixel image. Okay, so it's getting the 500 pixel image because what it does is it looks at the size of the container and it'll choose the most appropriate sized image out of that source set list. Okay, so if my image box is 350 pixels wide, it's going to look at this list and go, which one of these is going to work? Is 250 going to be good? No, that's too small. I want the biggest possible that will work with the image. 500, well, that's just slightly bigger than 350, so I guess that'll work. So it's going to serve this image. It's not going to look at 1000 or 1500 or 4032 because those are all way too big. It's got this one that'll satisfy it, okay? And it's using this size. It's setting the box size to 500. I'm going to change this. I'm going to set this to 150 and see what happens. Save it, and I'm going to refresh it. And you can see that shrunk way down. When I set the max size of that box to 150 pixels, it's going to make the box really small, and it's serving my 250 pixel image. This is not what I want. That image is way too small. I'm going to go up to 750 and see what it says. There we go. Now the image box that is loading at this wide screen is 750 pixels. That might be a little bit too big. It makes my feature text a little narrower than I want. It's serving the 1000 pixel image, which is appropriate because 750 size box, 750 pixels wide, is too wide for my 500 pixel image. The 500 pixel image would have to then scale up and it would get fuzzy. So it serves the best possible image, 1000. I felt when I did my design that 500 was the best size for anything larger than 48M for the screen size because I wanted it to sit nicely side by that text. So 500 pixels worked really well. Okay, now when we get smaller, than that 48M, just watch this little box up here. 48 rem, remember, is 768 pixels. That's when it's going to break. See, it's staying at 500 pixels. It's going to be as big as it can. It's still serving the 500 pixel image. There we go. You saw that break. Now, the image box is going to be 100% of the view width minus 12 rem. And it's taking up as much space as it can. Okay? I'm going to make a quick change here. What if I take off the, what if I just go to 100% view width? It got a little bit bigger. Now, the size of this box, let's find it here. The size of that image box is 584, which exceeds the 500 pixel wide image. So it serves the 1000 pixel wide image. Because it got bigger than 500, it needs an image bigger than 500. So it's going to serve that bigger image. The next size up is 1000. Okay. If I make this smaller, as soon as we get below 500, it serves the 500 pixel image. See that? So now this is responding as we want to. I'm just going to keep it here at 100 view width up to max width of 48 and then 500 pixels otherwise. So that's a responsive image for my figure. Let's take a look at the other image that's in there that we're going to make responsive. And it's this image on the sidebar. Let's see how it responds. Oops, I'm going to look at it in Firefox, not in Chrome. It's serving a 500 pixel image. If I go down to my sidebar and find that figure, the image box is saying 297 pixels wide. So because it's about 300 pixels wide, it's going to serve that 500 pixel wide image. See that? As I make this smaller, it breaks to a single column, and now it's taking up a wider box. It's taking up a box that is 520 pixels wide. So it's going to serve the 1000 pixel image because we are bigger than that 500 pixel image size. So it serves the next size up. Okay? It's going to get smaller, and as soon as we get below 500, you'll see it break to that 500 pixel image. So on the smaller screens, it's going to serve the smaller images. If somehow it were to go below 250, which it never will, it would serve the 250 pixel image, but it'll never get that small. Okay, so really the smallest size image it should ever serve is 500 pixels. All right? And then when we get Above our breakpoint of 1024, it breaks to 2 columns and it serves a smaller image. Let's look at the HTML for that. So we're in the feature right now. Let's go down to not main content, but side content. And you can see that I'm offering up all of those images that are in my folder. And I'm saying that a min width of 64 rem, so all the way up to 64 rem, it's going to, anything above 64 rem, it's going to serve a 500 pixel image. Otherwise, it's going to serve the 100 view width minus 6 rem. So it's going to fill up the entire available space. All right? I do have one more image in here, which is the logo image, but the logo image is always going to be just 250 pixels. I don't want it to get bigger. If it got bigger, it would look obnoxious. So let's think really quickly about strategy before I wrap up here. When you're deciding how to set the box size, so in size is the second argument, the box size for the image, you want to think about how much space it needs to take up. Like, what's the maximum size space that it's going to take up? And you can offer up, a specific pixel size, or you could do some calculations with view width. I did the 100 view width here, and then I did the 100 view width minus 6 rem in the other one. But basically, you're going to set these box sizes appropriate for how much space they need to take up. And you could have as many breakpoints in here as you need. You'll notice my breakpoints agree with the breakpoints that I have in my CSS. I have one at 48 rem here and another one at 64 rem. In your design, it might be most appropriate to have, for each image, breakpoints for each, like a min width at 48 and a min width at 64, and then a default. It really comes down to setting these things up for how your design is going to work best. So yours may not work perfectly doing what I did here. So you might not be able to just copy and paste this. You're going to have to kind of think your way through how you set this up. But the big thing you got to remember, provide a list of images that are going to be possibly used somewhere in your design. And then you choose a breakpoint and then set the size that the box should be. And then you can have as many breakpoints or as few breakpoints as you need for sizes. All right, that's it for responsive images. And actually, that's about it for this series of videos. I'm going to provide one more video kind of summing everything up and reviewing, but that's it. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.